Alright, sweet. So, like I said, today we're going to talk about basically the same stuff we did on, what day was that now? That must have been Thursday, right? Thursday. So, what's going to happen is, we'll do a couple problems together, then I'll give you some time to do them on your own. Then, a couple together, a couple on your own, a couple together, a couple on your own. I think we have 12 problems to get through. Okay, hopefully it goes quickly. So, first two. Cotangent and tangent, when you're looking for those angle measures, are special problems, right? Sine, cosine, cosecant, secant are pretty easy. Y, x, 1 over y, 1 over x. We're only dealing with one variable at a time for those. With cotangent and tangent, we're dealing with two variables at the same time. We're either doing x divided by y or y divided by x, right? Cotangent. Cotangent theta. We said in terms of x and y is what? On your unit circle, in terms of x and y, cotangent theta is what? X over y. Now, I would write it as x divided by y if you want. Doesn't matter. Now, for the cotangent, x divided by y or x over y has to equal 1. Right? Has to equal 1. Well, what kind of numbers, when I do division, equal 1?
Number divided by itself.
Number divided by itself, right? So like 3 divided by 3, 4 divided by 4. So what we need to figure out is where x and y are exactly the same thing. That is where we'll get cotangent theta equals 1. Now, on the homework there was one where it said, I think it's either cotangent or tangent equal -1. Right? Well, then it'd be the same number except it'd be 1 positive, 1 negative. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look here. We said for positive 1 we want the same exact number. Either both are going to be positive, both are going to be negative, and then they're going to be the same. So on my unit circle I'm going to look for that. If I start at 0, I go up right here. That is 45 degrees. Both are square root of 2 over 2. X and y are exactly the same. That is one spot it will happen. Keep going around. 135 is close, but 1 is positive, 1 is negative, so I know that's not it. I keep going. 225 is the other spot, right? Negative square root of 2 over 2, and negative square root of 2 over 2. They have to be exactly the same, so when I divide them, they will equal 1. Does that make sense? Those are the easy cotangent and tangent problems, when they equal 1 or -1. Those are the easy ones to figure out. So we had, what was that? 45 pi over 4 and 225 5 pi over 4. Does that make sense to everyone? When they equal 1 or equal -1, we're looking for either the same exact thing or the same numbers, just one positive, one negative.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Awesome. Any questions? When you get cotangent or tangent theta and it equals some sort of number is where it gets tricky. Right? We saw that on the homework with number 17. We're going to see it here with this problem. Tangent theta equals negative square root of 3 over 3. Tangent theta is y divided by x. Alright. So, there's no easy way to do a problem like this. I'm going to tell you that right now. These are tough problems. Now, if we look, negative square root of 3 over 3. Is there anywhere on our unit circle? We have places where we have square root of 3 in our numerator, right? On our unit circle. Is there anywhere you have a 3 in your denominator? No. So what that tells me is I know we had to rationalize at some point. Right? So at some point in this problem, I had square root of 3 in my denominator, and I had to rationalize. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to, I'm going to re-rationalize it so I get my radical back in my denominator. Okay? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to multiply by square root of 3 over square root of 3. So I'm going to get negative 3 over 3 square roots of 3. And I'm going to simplify it. I'm going to get -1 over square root of 3. So what that tells me is after I do my division, that's what I should have. When I do y divided by x, I should get -1 over the square root of 3. Okay? the problem is we need to do y times, 1 over x. Because when we divide by a fraction, we multiply by the reciprocal, right?
Yeah.
So we need to figure out what type of values are going to give me this. Well, if square root of 3 ends up in my denominator, do you think it's going to be in my y or my x value? If I have square root of 3 as my y value, is there any way for it to get to the denominator when I do multiplication? No. But if it is part of my x value, when I flip it, then I know it's going to be in the denominator, right? Does that kind of make sense? Yes? No? All right, so what we are looking for, x to equal square root of 3 over 2, or x to equal negative square root of 3 over 2. Does that make sense? Because then when we flip it, it becomes square root of 3 in our denominator. Yes?
Yes.
Okay, so what I'm looking at here, y times square root of 3, excuse me, 2 over square root of 3. So I want the reciprocal. Do we have questions? You're confused. You're lost. All right. So we knew that square root of 3 had to get to our denominator, right? To make that happen, it has to be my x value. So I know when I divide by my fraction here, I'm going to flip it. It's going to become a reciprocal. So I know my x value's got to have square root of 3 in the numerator. So then when I flip it, square root of 3 goes to my denominator. Okay? So I flipped it. Y times, let's say this x value. 2 over square root of 3. Okay, do you follow that part? Or are you still lost? You're good? Jalen, are you good?
Yeah, what's the 2 for?
Well, because if you look on your unit circle, is there anything on your unit circle square root of 3 that's not over 2? That's the only reason that we know it's got to be square root of 3 over 2, because there's nowhere on our unit circle where it's square root of 3 over 3, or square root of 3 over 4, anything like that. Right? It's always square root of 3 over 2. So what we need to figure out is what value of y is going to make our final answer be negative 1 over square root of 3. Well, look at all of our x, or look at any x value that is square root of 3 over 2. What's the y value there? Negative 1/2 or positive 1/2, right?
Yeah.
Well, which one would make it a negative answer? Negative or positive? What times a positive will give me a negative?
Negative.
Negative. It was a 50-50 chance, you're right. So, negative 1/2. If y is negative 1/2, let's just double check this. If y is negative 1/2, I'm plugging that in. Okay? I get negative 2 over 2 square roots of 3, which is negative 1 over square root of 3. Is that what I was looking for?
Yes.
Okay, so I know that is one of my options. Where y is negative 1/2, x is 2, or square root of 3 over 2. Does that make sense? Like I said, there's no easy way to do these problems. They really suck, to be 100% honest. They suck. Does that make sense? So what is that value, Patrick? Where is x square root of 3 over 2 and y negative 1/2?
Square root of 3 over 150 and 330.
Well, 330, right?
330, that's the only one.
So 330 degrees is one value. What'd you say?
I want to get the goal.
Then our other options, so that was this one. That was x being positive square root of 3 over 2. Okay? With x is negative square root of 3 over 2, then instead of y being negative 1/2, it's going to be positive 1/2. Well, where does that happen? 150. 150 degrees. So at 150 degrees, 5 pi over 6. 330 degrees, 11 pi over 6. Alright? Like I said, guys, there is no easy way to do this.
That is way too complicated.
Yeah, that is
Just like, not even trying to be like rude, but like, where would I need to do this?
Yeah.
What is the
You-
unit?
you-
so
you
what
can't-
is
you
this
can't
unit
come up with
for?
anything
Like, what
with
is
it.
this for?
Okay. You can write, if you don't want to learn this,
Yeah.
write to your legislators and tell them to change the legislation to not have to learn this. Now, if you were asking me if this is going to appear on your test,
Well, obviously, yeah.
I cannot answer that.
Cool.
Whoa, it's almost like he's saying it will be on the test.
It's almost like it. Right? I can't tell you. Like I said, these are crappy problems. They suck. Right?
They are awful.
Yeah, it is a naughty
What's
word.
finding out?
All right. There are 2 more problems there. Please try those 2 problems below.
Which is the one that will.
Can we work on this with a partner?
Do you want to do them together?
No, like, as groups.
Cute, turn around and work with us.
You have a minute
Whoa.
to figure it out. Figure out the 2 problems.
Just read, you need to raise your voice at me.
You have a minute.
You've been doing it in my head. See, let me send the wrong answers. I gave you both the right answers.
Yeah, well, you gave one that was wrong.
Actually, they were both right for the question.
I can't stand it. There's no easy way to explain it. Honestly,
It literally just
if,
seems like you made something up. Like, you just don't know.
honestly, if you guess and check, you have just have a chance of going through all those
I
signs.
mean, give me an
The big thing is trying to figure this part out.
Sin of
I
zero.
think all of it
So,
sucks.
then he goes
If square root of 3 ends up in your denominator, you know that's going to be your x value. So you're dividing by x. You flip it. Okay? And you just got to figure out, well, multiply by 1/2 or negative 1/2. Cancel.
Mystery.
There's, like I said, it's a really tough problem to conceptualize and to be able to see in your mind.
That's such a real question though. Where am I ever going in life?
Use the unit circle. It's a great question. I use it every single year.
You have.
I do. I don't know. That's something you can look up online. You know, it's not always though about the actual problems. Sometimes it's about the problem solving skills that you learn while doing them.
That's so right.
Thank you.
So, for, is
What's
C
that?
one of those really long?
Why is that funny? What?
C one of the really long confusing problems?
No.
It's not?
C is probably the easiest problem out there.
Yeah, well then you just, so
about
it's negative
D?
3 over 2, so then you just
D is a pretty easy one too.
plug them in. So it
I
could
mean, D is not an easy one.
could be 300 for C.
Alright, hey, let's go through them. Right, I think you should have plenty of time. Let's go through it. First one, C. Sine of theta equals what? Sine of theta is y. So, where does y equal negative square root of 3 over 2? Let's look on our unit circle. Well, hey, y would be negative down here. So, negative square root of 3 over 2, negative square root of 3 over 2, boom. Those are my 2 answers. 240 degrees, 4 pi over 3. 4 pi over 3. 300 degrees, 5 pi over the 3. Right? Did we all get that one? That one you should be able to do. That one you need to do. You need to be able to know how to do that one. Same with D. D is really not that hard. It's not as hard as that tangent problem. That one sucked. Secant theta is the same as 1 over x, right? Well, if 1 over x equals square root of 2, x equals 1 over square root of 2. Right?
Yeah.
Well, how many of those numbers on your unit circle have square root of 2 in the denominator? 0 of them. So I'm going to rationalize it. Times square root of 2 over square root of 2. We want where x equals square root of 2 over 2. Well, if we look on here. X equals square root of 2 over 2. Square root of 2 over 2. So 315, 7 pi over 4. 45 degrees pi over 4. So that one, those two we should be able to do. Those ones aren't that bad. Cotangent, tangent when they equal 1. Really easy, right? Or when they equal -1. Really easy. Just those other ones that are a little tricky. Alright. Hey, questions?
Not really.
Alright, we have what? 11 minutes?
It's 14, so 25. 25
Thank you,
minus
Patrick.
14 is 11.
Alright. Dom, pick a number 1 through 4. 3. Stetner, 1 through 4.
3.
Besides 3.
You didn't say it.
Okay, I'm saying it now.
1.
1. Alright, we'll do 1 and 3. To start with. Alright, these ones are all given to us in what? Radians. Well, you could change them to degrees if you wanted. But 11 pi over 6, is that on my unit circle?
Yeah.
Yeah, so why don't we just use that? Alright, so cotangent we said was, is that x divided by y? Well, at 11 pi over 6, 11 pi over 6, otherwise known as 330 degrees. I want my x value divided by my y value. I want square root of 3 over 2 divided by -1/2. Well, do we divide by fractions?
No.
No, we multiply by the reciprocal. So square root of 3 over 2 times -2 over 1. Well, -2 square roots of 3 over 2 is the same as negative square root of 3, or negative square root of 3 over 1. Right? Don't divide by the fraction. Multiply by the reciprocal. Multiply tops, multiply bottoms, and then we reduce to negative square root of 3. Does that make sense?
It actually does.
It does. Hey, what would have happened if that square root of 3 would have ended up in our denominator?
We would have had to rationalize.
We would have had to rationalize, right? No radicals in our denominator. Alright, we said we're going to skip 2. Said we're going to skip 4. Number 3, -5 pi over 6. Do we know where that is on our unit circle? Okay, so here's the deal. You could change it to degrees. But let's think about it in radians for a second. I want to think in radians, right? Let's challenge ourselves. How far is it around the whole circle in radians? 2 pi. Which is the same as how many pi over 6?
12.
12 pi over 6, right? 12 pi over 6 reduces to 2 pi. So if we think it's 12 pi over 6 all the way around the circle, but I'm going -5 pi over 6, do you think I can maybe just subtract them to find the positive value? Right? If it takes me 12 pi over 6 to get all the way around, I'm going -5 pi over 6. Can I subtract them to find this part then?
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's do that. So 12 pi over 6 minus 5 pi over 6 should give me 7 pi over 6. So instead of looking for sine of -5 pi over 6, I'm now looking for sine of 7 pi over 6. Positive 7 pi. Now, do you have to do this on a test or on the homework? No, you can change to degrees if you'd like, but we want to challenge ourselves every once in a while. So, the y value, because it's the sine, the y value at 7 pi over 6. So 7 pi over 6, otherwise known as 210 degrees, my y value is -1/2. So that's my answer. Does that make sense?
Yes.
All right? Any questions? All right. Liam, pick a number 1 through 4.
1 and 2.
Liam, did I ask
5
you for
and
2?
6.
Did I ask you for 2 numbers?
5.
I asked you for
Well,
a number between
there's-
1 and 4.
1.
Pick a number.
1.
Bryce, can you please pick a number between 1 and 4 that is not 1?
3.
2? All right, we'll do 7 and 8.
What the heck?
I went backwards. It was 1, 2, 3, 4. Got you.
Remember when you could pick a number and you literally couldn't pick one and you picked one?
Alright, so 7, cosine of negative 225 degrees. Remember, cosine we're looking for x. Shh. Instead of looking for negative 225, I'm going to find that positive value. I'm going to go 360 minus 225. Should give me 135 degrees. So instead of looking for cosine of negative 225, I'm going to look for cosine of 135 degrees. So the x value at 135 degrees, that's not right. Do that. Negative square root of 2 over 2. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Questions?
No. Tangent's gonna be tough.
Tangent, negative 120 degrees. Well, instead of doing negative 120 degrees, I'm going to do tangent of positive 240 degrees, right? 360 minus 120 will give me 240. Y divided by x. So at 240 degrees, y value, negative square root of 3 over 2, times, I'm going to do the reciprocal of x, multiply by the reciprocal, negative 2 over 1. I get 2 square root of 3 over 2, which should just equal
Square root of 3.
square root 3. All right, any questions?
That's fun, man.